Ever notice how someone leaving the toilet seat up sets you off? Or maybe it's the sound of someone chewing with their mouth open, or that painfully slow coffee run where you're just trying to grab a latte, or when someone ghosts your text for hours. 3 hours of radio silence and then bam, completely out of the blue. A wave of irritation washes over you, and it feels way out of proportion. It feels way too intense for what just happened. You might feel your jaw clench, your breathing gets shallow, your fists are practically vibrating. All because of something that, let's be honest, really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And then the questions start swirling. What is wrong with me? Why do I get so worked up over these tiny things? Why do these small, seemingly insignificant moments have the power to completely ruin my mood? Why does my partner's inability to put the toilet seat down bother me more than actual, serious problems in my life? If any of this sounds familiar, I need you to hear this. There is nothing wrong with you, but there is something going on inside that you desperately need to understand. Something that Eckhart Tolle, the renowned spiritual teacher, has explained in ways that can fundamentally change how you experience these little irritations. Something that, once you truly see it, will transform your relationship with anger forever. Today, I'm going to reveal why those little things get under your skin so much, why your reactions almost never have to do with the immediate situation, and most importantly, what's really going on beneath the surface when that wave of irritation crashes over you. By the end of this video, you'll understand yourself in a way most people never do, and you'll have some real, practical tools to break free from these reactive patterns that may have been running the show your whole life. So, let's start with the most important truth about your irritation. It's never about what just happened. I want you to really let that sink in. When you blow up over something small, the explosion is never really about that small thing. The toilet seat, the loud chewing, the slow coffee run, the unanswered text. None of these things are the real reason for your reaction. They're just the trigger. Think about it this way. If you were completely at peace, completely centered, completely present in this very moment, would the toilet seat being left up really have the power to upset you? Would someone chewing with their mouth open really be able to destroy your inner peace? Of course not. These things would just register as minor observations, not emotional catastrophes. So what's really happening? Eckhart Tolle explains it through something he calls the pain body. I like to call it emotional baggage. It's essentially an accumulation of old emotional pain that lives inside you, like a semi-autonomous entity. It's made up of every hurt you never fully processed, every angry feeling you suppressed, every grief you didn't allow yourself to feel, every fear you pushed down instead of facing it head-on. Now, this emotional baggage doesn't just sit there quietly. It needs to feed. It needs fresh emotional pain to keep itself going. So it's always on the lookout. It scans your environment constantly, searching for anything it can use as an excuse to create more pain, more drama, more reactivity. When someone leaves the toilet seat up, your emotional baggage sees an opportunity. Finally, something to react to. Finally, a chance to generate that familiar feeling of irritation, resentment, or even full-blown anger. And before your conscious mind even has a chance to rationally assess the situation, your emotional baggage has already hijacked your system. You aren't really you anymore. You are the emotional baggage expressing itself through you. That's why your reaction feels so disproportionate, because it isn't a reaction to the toilet seat. It's years, maybe even decades, of accumulated emotional pain, erupting through a tiny opening. The toilet seat was just the excuse. The energy that explodes through you has been building for a long time. Ever noticed how the same little thing that barely registers on a good day can completely derail you on a bad day? Same toilet seat, same loud chewing, same unanswered text. but completely different reactions. That proves the reaction has nothing to do with the external trigger, and everything to do with your internal state. When your emotional baggage is dormant, small things stay small. But when it's active and looking for food, small things become unforgivable offenses. But there's another layer to this that Tolle explains brilliantly, and it has to do with the ego, or as I like to call it, your inner critic. Your inner critic loves to complain. It loves to be offended. It loves to find problems, to create conflict, to feel like it's right and someone else is wrong. This is how your inner critic strengthens itself. This is how it maintains its sense of separate identity. When someone leaves the toilet seat up, your inner critic sees this as a direct attack on its sense of order. How dare they, it says. Don't they know how things should be done around here? Don't they respect my preferences? Your inner critic creates a whole narrative around a simple oversight, turning an unconscious act by another person into a personal affront against you. And here's the crucial insight. Your inner critic is not you. Your emotional baggage is not you. You are the awareness that can observe these patterns in action. But when you are completely identified with your inner critic and your emotional baggage, when you believe you are these reactions, you have no space to respond differently. The reaction happens automatically, and you are swept along with it, like a leaf in a flood. This is what Tolle means when he says that reactivity is the fuel on which the ego thrives. Every time you react unconsciously, you strengthen your inner critic. Every time you get irritated over something small, you feed your emotional baggage, and both of these entities inside you become stronger, more demanding, more likely to be triggered. The next time around, it becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. The more you react, the more reactive you become. The more you feed your emotional baggage, the hungrier it gets. But here's what most people never understand about their irritation. Modern psychology has actually uncovered something fascinating about why we react so strongly to seemingly minor annoyances. Research shows that the human brain often struggles to differentiate between genuine threats and minor inconveniences. When you encounter a frustrating situation, your amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, can activate the full fight-or-flight response, even when there's absolutely no actual danger. This is an evolutionary holdover from our past. Our ancestors needed quick, intense reactions to survive. A rustle in the bushes could mean a predator was nearby. Better to overreact and be wrong than to underreact and become dinner. But in the modern world, this same mechanism misfires. Constantly. Your brain can treat a slow internet connection the same way it would treat a saber-toothed tiger. And then there's something called the stacked stress effect. When you are already stressed out, when your nervous system is already running on high alert, even the smallest additional stressors can push you over the edge. Your capacity to handle frustration is not infinite. It's a depleting resource. And if you've been running on fumes all day because of small stresses, big worries, tossing and turning all night, and just not getting enough rest, then yeah, that leaving the toilet seat up, it becomes the straw that broke the camel's back. This is exactly why you can sometimes handle huge problems with surprising calm, but then completely lose it over something that seems so trivial. Major problems? They often come with a little preparation time, a heads up. You can brace yourself, gather your resources, put on your I've got this face. But those little everyday annoyances, they blindside you. They sneak past your defenses. They catch you when your emotional gas tank is already empty. Psychologist Jerry Deffenbacher, he came up with this model of anger that really helps explain this. He basically said that anger is the result of three things happening all at once. The thing that sets you off, your own personality, and how you're thinking about the whole situation. The thing that triggers you. That's usually the least important part. What really matters is where you're at before you even get angry, how stressed, tired, anxious, or just plain worn out you already are. And maybe even more important is how you're interpreting things, your cognitive appraisal. Are you seeing that leaving the toilet seat up as a simple, innocent oversight? Or are you reading it as deliberate disrespect? Are you seeing that slow driver as someone who's just having a rough day? Or are you convinced they're only on the road to ruin yours? The story you're telling yourself about what happened, it's way more powerful than what actually did happen. And this, finally, brings us back to what Eckhart Tolle teaches. He says that a reaction is not the same thing as being sensitive. In fact, reaction is the opposite of sensitivity. Let me explain that, because honestly, this is one of the most important things you'll ever understand. A lot of people think that reacting strongly to things shows that they are sensitive people, that they're really feeling things. They wear their reactivity like a badge of honor. Hey, I'm just passionate, I care deeply, I have strong feelings. But Eckhart Tolle points out that a reaction, it's actually a conditioned response. It's coming straight from the past. It's mechanical, automatic, pre-programmed. True sensitivity is something completely different. True sensitivity comes from being present, from really seeing what's happening right now, without any of those old filters coloring it. A truly sensitive person, they can notice that the toilet seat is up without the whole song and dance of irritation. They simply see it for what it is. They might put it down, or not, but there's no emotional charge. The seeing, it's clean, clear, not twisted by old pain. When you react, you're not seeing the present moment at all. You're seeing the past, projected onto the present. You're seeing every time someone disrespected you, every time your needs weren't met, every time you felt unseen or unimportant. All of that old pain gets piled onto this current moment, and suddenly the toilet seat being up. That's carrying the weight of a lifetime of grievances. This is exactly why Eckhart Tolle says that a reaction is never appropriate for what's happening right now. It's always dragging the past into the present. And as long as you're living in the past, you can't be present, you can't see clearly, you can't respond unwisely. So what's really going on when that wave of irritation washes over you? Let me walk you through the steps of a reactive moment, one by one. First, something happens around you. A sound, a sight, something someone says or does. That's the trigger. By itself, it's neutral. It's just energy, just information. Second, your unconscious mind instantly scans that input against all the stored patterns in your head. It's checking. Have I seen something like this before? What happened then? What did it mean? This happens in milliseconds, way below your conscious awareness. Third, if the input matches a pattern linked to past pain or threat, your nervous system kicks into gear. Stress hormones start flooding your system. Your body starts getting ready for fight or flight. Fourth, the emotion bubbles up. Irritation, anger, frustration, whatever flavor of emotional baggage you prefer. This emotion has a lot of energy. It feels urgent, compelling, true. Fifth, thoughts start popping up to justify the emotion. Of course I'm angry. Look what they did. Anyone would be upset. They should know better. Your mind is creating a whole story that makes the emotion seem like the only reasonable response. Sixth, you act out the emotion, either out loud with words or actions, or internally by stewing and holding on to resentment. The energy of the reaction gets expressed or suppressed. Either way, it reinforces that pattern for us next time. All of this happens in seconds, often before you even realize what's going on. By the time you're aware that you're irritated, the reaction is already well underway. That's why most people feel powerless to control their reactions. They only notice it after it's happened, when the damage is already done. But here's the good news, and this is what Eckhart Tolle teaches as the path to freedom. The moment you become aware, even if it's after the reaction, that's the beginning of setting yourself free. He says, just being there as the awareness is already the beginning of freedom. And then little by little you realize that you are that awareness. You are not the thing that's reacting. Let me say that again because it's that important. You are the awareness, not the thing that's reacting. Your emotional baggage is not you. Your inner critic is not you. the patterns of reactivity. They're not you. You are the consciousness in which all of these things appear. You are the space where the drama is playing out. When you really see this, not just as an idea, but as something you experience, everything changes. You start to have a choice, not the choice to never feel irritation, that might still pop up automatically, but the choice of whether to become the irritation, whether to let it take over and control what you do. Eckhart Tolle explains that awareness usually shows up after the reaction, after the energy of your emotional baggage has already died down. But as you become more present, as you practice staying aware more consistently, the time between the trigger and your awareness starts getting shorter and shorter. Eventually, you can catch the reaction as it's happening, before it completely takes over. And in that moment of catching it, of recognizing it, you create space. And in that space, you have options. You can take a breath. You can watch the sensation in your body. Without acting on it, you can ask yourself, is this reaction really as big as what happened? Is this really about the toilet seat? Or is something older and deeper getting stirred up? You can choose to be present, instead of just reacting. This doesn't mean you try to squash the irritation. Suppressing it just shoves it back into your emotional baggage, where it'll bubble back up later, often even stronger. Instead, you let the energy of the irritation be there. While you stay there as the witness, you feel it fully without becoming it. You let it move through you, like the weather moving across the sky. The sky is never harmed by storms. No matter how dark the clouds, how heavy the rain, how loud the thunder, the sky itself, it stays the same, vast, open, peaceful. It allows everything to pass through without resistance and without identification. You can be that sky. You can let irritation arise and pass without losing yourself in it. And every time you do this consciously, you weaken your emotional baggage. You break the cycle of reaction and reinforcement. You create new neural pathways based on presence, rather than old ones based on pain. Now, I want to give you some practical guidance for the next time you feel irritation rising over something small. First, recognize what is happening. The moment you notice that you are becoming irritated, say to yourself internally, emotional baggage is arising. This simple act of naming creates a crucial distance between you and the emotion. You are not the emotional baggage. You are the one noticing the emotional baggage. Second, feel the physical sensations without the story. Where is the irritation in your body? Is it a tightness in your chest? A clenching in your jaw? Heat in your face? Focus on the raw sensations, without the mental narrative that usually accompanies them. Just feel what is actually happening in your body, right now. Third, take 3 conscious breaths. Not controlled breathing, not forced relaxation. Just 3 breaths that you pay attention to, fully. Feel the air entering, feel the air leaving. This simple practice activates your parasympathetic nervous system and begins to calm the stress response. Fourth, ask yourself a key question. Is this reaction proportionate to what just happened? Be honest. If someone from outside could see the situation objectively, would they understand why you are this upset? Or would they see a massive overreaction to something minor? Fifth, look for the real source. If leaving the toilet seat up triggered this much irritation, what is really going on? Are you stressed about something else? Are you tired? Are you feeling unappreciated in general? Are old wounds being activated? The honest answer is almost never about leaving the toilet seat up. Sixth, choose your response consciously. Now that you have created some space, now that you are not completely identified with the reaction, you can choose how to respond. Maybe you put the toilet seat down and move on. Maybe you mention it to someone calmly, without charge. Maybe you recognize that this is your issue to work with, not something that requires external action at all. This practice is not about becoming a doormat or never expressing legitimate concerns. There is a vast difference between conscious communication and unconscious reaction. You can absolutely address issues that matter to you, but you can do it from presence rather than from pain. You can speak truth without the distortion of old emotional baggage. The goal is not to never feel irritation. That would be unrealistic and probably unhealthy. The goal is to stop being possessed by it. The goal is to have irritation. Without irritation, having you. If you found this video helpful, if it has given you insight into patterns that have been controlling you, consider showing your support through super thanks. It helps me continue creating content that supports people on this journey of awakening. And every contribution tells me that this message is reaching those who need it. Now let me share something that might surprise you about irritation. In the context of spiritual awakening, many people on the awakening journey find that they become more irritable, not less, at least in certain stages. This seems counterintuitive. Shouldn't spiritual growth make you calmer and more peaceful? Here is what happens. As you become more conscious, as you develop the witness capacity that Eckhart Tolle describes, you start to notice things you never noticed before. You see your reactions more clearly. You feel your emotions more intensely. Things that used to slide by unconsciously now register in your awareness. This can feel like you are getting worse, when actually you are getting more aware. Before, you were reacting unconsciously all the time, but you did not see it. Now, you are still reacting sometimes, but you see it, and that seeing feels uncomfortable, because you realize how mechanical, how conditioned, how not really you these reactions are. At the same time, as your sensitivity increases during awakening, you may genuinely become more affected by things that did not bother you before. Loud noises may seem louder. Harsh energy may feel harsher. Things that felt tolerable in your less aware state may now feel intolerable as your system becomes more refined. This is a normal part of the process. It does not mean you are failing. It means you are transitioning. Your old coping mechanisms of numbness and suppression are dissolving, and your new capacity for conscious presence is still developing. You are in the in-between space, and it is uncomfortable. The key is to keep practicing presence, especially during these challenging moments. Every time you catch yourself reacting and bring awareness to it, you are strengthening the new pattern. Every time you choose presence over reaction, even imperfectly, you are building the muscle that will eventually make this easier. And there is something else I want you to understand about why small things irritate you so much, especially if you are someone going through spiritual development. You may be noticing incongruence more acutely than ever before, as you become more aligned with truth and presence within yourself. Anything that is out of alignment in your environment starts to jar you. Leaving the toilet seat up is not just leaving the toilet seat up. It represents disorder, unconsciousness, a lack of presence in whoever left it open. On some level, you are reacting to the unconsciousness itself, not the physical object. This can be a trap if you are not careful. The inner critic can use spiritual growth as another reason to judge others, to feel superior, to be irritated by people who are not as aware as you. This is what Eckhart Tolle calls spiritual ego, and it is one of the most insidious forms of inner critic, because it uses the language of awakening to strengthen separation. Watch for this in yourself. When you feel irritated by small things, ask yourself, am I using this as an opportunity to practice presence, or as an excuse to feel superior to whoever triggered me? Am I allowing this moment to deepen my awakening, or am I letting my inner critic hijack my spiritual journey? True presence does not judge. True presence does not need things to be a certain way in order to remain at peace. True presence can hold space for leaving the toilet seat up, without needing to make it mean anything about the person who left it open, or about the state of the world, or about anything at all. This is the freedom that awaits you, on the other side of your reactivity. Imagine what your life would be like if small things stopped having power over you. Imagine moving through your day without being thrown off balance by minor inconveniences. Imagine having the ability, the utter capability, to stay centered no matter what craziness life throws your way. Imagine the sheer peace that would be possible if you were no longer a puppet, dancing to the tune of every single trigger that comes along. This isn't some far-fetched fantasy. This is reality. This is what becomes possible when you truly grasp and actively apply what Eckhart Tolle so brilliantly teaches. Not through sheer willpower and internal struggle, not through trying to stifle and control every impulse, but through presence and awareness. Through seeing what's really happening in the moment, through finally recognizing that you are not the reaction itself, the little annoyances. They're going to keep happening. Mark's going to leave the toilet seat up. Sarah's going to chew her food like a cow. Some idiot's going to be driving 20 miles per hour in the left lane. Your texts are going to go unanswered for hours, leaving you on red. This is life. This is simply what being a human, in a world full of other humans, entails. But what changes is you. What shifts is your relationship to these everyday moments. What truly transforms is the amount of power they hold over your inner state of being. And as this changes, something truly remarkable unfolds. You begin to respond to life instead of blindly reacting to it. You begin to bring a sense of peace and calm to situations instead of just adding more fuel to the fire of chaos. You become a beacon, a force for presence in the world, rather than just another unconscious reactor, mindlessly contributing to the collective emotional baggage. This isn't just about your personal comfort, although yes, you will suffer less. It's about the energy you're putting out into the world. Every single unconscious reaction you have impacts everyone around you. It sends ripples outwards through your relationships, your workplace, your family, or your community. Your irritation becomes someone else's trigger, which ignites their reaction, which then triggers someone else entirely. It's a never-ending cycle. But presence ripples out too. When you remain grounded, centered, in a particularly triggering moment, that stability, that calm, is felt by everyone in your vicinity. You become an anchor of calm. In the raging storm of collective reactivity, you help break the chain, instead of perpetuating it further. Tell me in the comments, what seemingly small things tend to trigger you the most? And, more importantly, have you ever caught yourself smack dab in the middle of a reaction and managed to create some space, to step back, to consciously choose presence? Instead of continuing the same old pattern, I really want to hear about your experiences. You are not your reactions. You never were, and now you possess the understanding, the knowledge, to begin proving that to yourself. One small trigger at a time. The proverbial toilet seat awaits, but so does your freedom. What fast will you choose?